Welcome back to Wrestling with Horror. My name is Andrew Dreamer, and this is the channel where we talk about professional wrestling, we talk about horror movies, and we look at all the ways that they intersect, connect, and everything in between. Now, we're going to continue our Scream franchise review series. Today is going to be Scream 3, a very divisive and polarizing and controversial film in the Scream franchise. Now, whether that's a good thing or bad thing, who knows? We'll talk about that. But we're going to talk about the plot a little bit. We're going to talk about what I like about the movie, what I don't like about the movie, and we're going to talk about some of the reasons why this film is so controversial among the fans. But let's just go ahead and jump right in. Before we get going with this, though, I want to say thank you to everybody who has subscribed. We are now over 200 subscribers for the channel. Thank you so much. It means the world to me, and I will never be able to repay you for all the support. But if you haven't hit that subscribe button, make sure you go ahead and hit that now. Turn your notifications on so you never miss another video from Wrestling with Horror. And if you haven't done it yet, go check out my t-shirt store at prowrestlingtees.com/AndrewDreamer. You might just find something you like and you want to pick up for yourself. So the Scream franchise is noted for having some of the best opening sequences in horror history. The first Scream movie had that scene with Casey Becker and Drew Barrymore playing her. It is one of the best opening sequences in all of horror movies. It is one of the best opening sequences in all of cinema, in my opinion. Now, the second movie had that scene with Jada Pinkett Smith and Omar Epps, and they both, that was a good scene as well. Now, in this third movie, we pick up with Cotton Weary on his way home from his talk show that is called 100% Cotton. That's funny. Now, along the way home, he gets a call from GHOSTFACE, who he discovers is in his apartment watching his girlfriend. Now, upon hearing this, he rushes home, and while he's trying to get there, his girlfriend discovers that there's somebody in the apartment. She thinks it's Cotton because she hears his voice, but not quite, because that's where this film's biggest flaw, in my opinion, comes into play. It's that stupid voice changer that lets Ghostface imitate anybody's voice. I don't have to tell you why that doesn't make sense. You already know that that technology is just ridiculous to even comprehend. But the movie does not get bogged down too much by that, in my opinion. It is definitely the biggest issue I have, though. Now, there are a few other small things that we'll get into a little bit later, but let's just continue with the plot right now. So after the events of Scream 2, Dewey and Gale are no longer together. Dewey's working as a consultant on Stab 3, which they are now filming. And it's kind of on a hiatus now because Cotton was supposed to film a cameo as himself, and that is no longer possible because of his death. Now, Gale is actually being recruited, I guess, by the police to help with these crimes, and so she goes to the set to try to snoop around and do what she does best. She runs into Dewey, who basically tells her that she's not needed there. He just wants her to go away, and he's hurt. This man is in a lot of pain. And Sidney, she's living off the grid. She's in a cabin in the middle of the woods, and the only people who know where she is are her dog, her dad, and Dewey. Not a single other person knows that she's out there. And that's the way she wants to keep it. She's trying to avoid anything that could even remind her of Ghostface or the killings in any way. She's lost all of her friends except for Dewey and Gale. And Gale is not even really a friend. She's kind of just that person that was there. She's hit Gale twice. Now, of course, the killings continue to happen. There are a few other people that get killed, and the movie gets completely shut down. And they take Roman Bridger into custody because he was the last one to talk to this other actress, supposedly. There was also a funny little kind of quip where they were talking about Cotton's death, and they were kind of saying that, you know, is this actually connected? And detective goes, he was making a movie called Stab. He was stabbed. And that is something else that this movie does. It kind of takes that meta, funny stuff over the top. It kind of takes it a little too far. I think that's a lot of people's issue with this film, is that it just goes too far with the comedy. Not to me, though. Not to me, it works for the most part in this movie. There are a few things that are kind of cringeworthy or just don't make sense, but for the most part, I enjoy the comedy in this movie. And from here, you get the basic run-of-the-mill kind of Scream stuff where the characters all kind of converge together and more people start to get killed and things like that. And it's leading up to a big third act. Now, in this third act, you have Dewey and Gale confronting the producer of the movie, John Milton. And there's kind of this weird subplot of the movie where this producer is a sexual predator. And it's very disgusting because it kind of... Bob and Harvey Weinstein are producers on this movie. And it's a little too real. I don't like it. It's disgusting. But all these characters end up at John Milton's house for Roman's birthday party. And Dewey and Gale think that Sidney's going to be there because of that stupid voice changer again. Of course she's not. Ghostface just wanted to get them all together at the house so he could unveil his plan, as Ghostface does. So everybody splits up and goes their separate ways. People start dying, and eventually you're left with just Dewey and Gale left. And Ghostface captures them and ties them up, and then calls Sidney, who's sitting at a police desk. And I forgot to mention that the detective working on this case is named Mark Kincaid. And he's played by Patrick Dempsey, who does he actually does a really good job in this role. And in Scream 5, we learn that Sidney is married to somebody named Mark. So it is most likely that it is this character, and I think that's a really nice touch. They had some good chemistry in this movie. They bonded over their lives being the scariest movie they've ever seen. And it's just a nice touch. So if he decides that he wants to be a part of the movie franchise in the future, so be it. I would love to see him come back if him and Neve Campbell can come back together and find something that works for them, because that's more important than the movie itself, finding their own credibility in what they're doing. So Sidney ends up at the house. She goes on her Ghostface chase where he's coming after her. She locks herself in this hidden room, and that's what this house has. It's a lot of secret passageways and secret screening rooms and private areas where parties would happen. It's still disgusting to me, like that this house is even like it. This whole subplot with that producer is just gross. But here is when Ghostface decides to unveil his plan. He goes on this big long monologue about how Sidney's mother was not who she seemed, and throughout the movie we've kind of learned that she was not who she said she was. Before she met Sidney's father, she went to LA and became an actress, and she was working on several John Milton movies. They were horror movies, and a lot of bad stuff happened to her there. And it's during this that the killer starts talking about how he was searching for his mother, and he ended up in Woodsboro at the door of Maureen Prescott, and she turned him away, saying that he was not her child, and she only had one child, which is Sidney. And that's when he unmasks himself to reveal that it is the director of Stab 3, Roman Bridger, who is Sidney's brother. And now, a lot of people don't like this reveal of the killer. Doesn't make sense to a lot of people. For me, it works fine. I think he does a pretty good job as Ghostface. And it's actually the only film in the franchise up to this point. We don't know what's going to happen in Scream 6 yet, but it's the only film in the franchise where there's only one killer. And that, like I said, that works for me. It changed things up a little bit. So, do I think he's the best Ghostface? Probably not. No, definitely not, actually. He's not the best. But he does good with what he's given. His role in this movie is enough to where he's a part of the story and all the stuff that you need to have a good Ghostface reveal. Of course, they have their fight. Sidney comes out on top, and Dewey and Gale live. Mark Kincaid lives, and they all end up at Sidney's house watching a movie. And that's where Dewey proposes to Gale. And we'll see that they're married in Scream 4, but we'll get to that next week. Now, like I said, my biggest issue with this film is the stupid voice changer that we've all talked about ad nauseum. It doesn't make any sense. But like I said, that's not enough to really just hinder this movie for me. I like this movie a lot. It's not even my least favorite in the series, and you're going to get a franchise ranking when the new one comes out. The comedy, the meta of it all, it's not horrible. It's a good sequel, and even if this is the worst movie in the franchise, you're doing pretty good, considering that a lot of franchises really lose their way and put out some stinkers. This is not a stinker, in my opinion. Now, a few of the other issues I have are sometimes that over-the-top comedy does go a little too far. There's some dialogue choices that are just cringeworthy a little bit, and the characters make some dumb choices, and then there's that whole scene with they're at Jennifer Jolie's house, and whoever smells the gas dies, and they all jump over the fence and roll down the hill, and it's very Benny Hill, and I don't think it fits in the Scream franchise. It's just a little too much for me. But other than that, like I said, there's some character choices and some moments in the movie, like where the killer throws his knife at Dewey and it hits him in the forehead. He falls down the stairs, and it's just a little too goofy for me. We've spent 3 movies getting to know these characters, to build our relationship with these characters, and it's not needed at this point. If you did that in the first one, so be it. That's, even then, I don't think it really fits. But the first movie really played Dewey as kind of a goofball, and this one he's not. He's meant to be more serious, and it's a step back for the character. But that's not something that's really going to knock this movie down that much. It really isn't. Like I said, I love this movie. I love this franchise as a whole, and this movie fits perfectly into the franchise for me. Even if you want to ignore the canon that this movie kind of just retcons everything, and it kind of sours what Billy and Stu did in the first one, which is perfection, other than, perfection in the eyes of a fan, like as far as the execution of a killer. But like I said, those are just some small issues. They're nothing major that are going to destroy this movie or make it the worst in the franchise or anything like that. But for me, that's just how I feel about it. And those are my thoughts on Scream 3. Let me know down in the comments what you thought about the movie. Did you like the movie? Did you hate it? Are you one of the people who wanted to see the other version of this movie that we were supposed to get, with Matthew Lillard returning as Stu and there being a big cult of Ghostfaces coming after Sidney? Do you want to see that? Because I think that could have been interesting, but I'm still happy with what we got. So just let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are on Scream 3. And next week, we're going to get to Scream 4, then Scream 5, and the week after that will be Scream 6. And I'm really excited for that movie. I think this is going to be really big, and I want to continue this review series, and I'm trying to get better with each review that I do and be more confident in the way I'm speaking and everything like that. But until next time, I'm Andrew Dreamer, and this is Wrestling with Horror.